Good morning, Endeavor, and a special good morning to you today, Eric.
Good morning to you, Shannon, and the rest of the team that supports us and the International Space Station around the world. I'd like to thank my family, Kristen, Maddie, and Tony, for the song, and we're ready to continue making extreme home improvements.
And we are ready to support you. And in the spirit of support, your execute package should be printing as...
That right-on-time wake-up call was Fanfare for the Common Man by Aaron Copland, and it was played for Bo, or pilot Eric Bo. It was followed by Shannon Lucid voicing up rather standard beginning of the day messages to the crew, signifying basically that everything's ready to roll for the upcoming day, which will focus on transfer of equipment and supplies between Endeavour and the International Space Station. There will also be a session of installation in the station of equipment on today's agenda.
This is Mission Control Houston, looking inside the International Space Station as crews continue their work to install one of the newly arrived crew quarters. This is the port crew quarters module.
And Houston Station on 2, are you on board the lab camera?
We are, and we see that. I'm sure the folks are going to appreciate it.
Yeah, well, we certainly appreciate all the hard work by all the technicians, engineers, and the entire team to help us get all these new racks together. And I know the team's been working on them for a long time, so they're proud of their work. We're really proud of them, and so we're really glad to carry their signatures with us up here in space.
Well, thanks for putting that in front of the camera, Spanky. That's pretty cool. I'm sure they're going to appreciate it.
Terry Virts in the International Space Station control room talking with Expedition 18 Commander Mike Fink on board in the Destiny Laboratory module, where he and Don Pettit are in the process of making some plumbing connections with the water recovery system, pointing out the back panel of that system that's off now for the connections, that it contains the signatures of the engineers that worked on the development and fabrication of that piece of equipment at the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, at Hamilton Sundstrand in Windsor Locks, Connecticut, who led the development of that water recovery system. Scientists and engineers signed the back panel before it was installed into the Leonardo Multipurpose Logistics Module for delivery to the space station. Endeavour Commander Chris Ferguson floating through some additional transfer equipment. Again, the crew moving well ahead of its planned transfer timelines, having transferred more than half of these large racks over into the space station from Leonardo, and almost a quarter of the 7 tons of supplies and equipment in total. And now with a view inside the Quest airlock module, the equipment lock in the foreground and the crew lock in behind, with Steve Bowen beginning some preparations for the second spacewalk of the mission tomorrow. Spacewalker Heidi Stephanician Piper in the Quest airlock module, preparing for tomorrow's spacewalk. This one she'll step outside the hatch with mission specialist and first-time spacewalker Shane Kimbrough to conduct some additional lubrication activities and cleaning activities on the starboard or right solar alpha rotary joint of the International Space Station. That joint has not been working exactly as it's supposed to since about September of last year.
I copied that the battery term. I can go ahead and do that, so I'm going to put that in work right now.
Copy, Heidi. Thanks.
She's working on charging up the batteries that'll be used in the extravehicular mobility unit spacesuits on tomorrow's spacewalk, getting the okay to end that charge. As we continue to look at some downlink television from the Destiny Laboratory module, as Don Pettit at the very lower portion of your screen there continues to work with plumbing hookups for the water recovery system, a new system that's going to allow the crew to recycle urine condensation from the atmosphere and other hygiene water that they use on board for reuse by six-person crews aboard the space station. And once a thorough 90-day checkout of the system, make sure the water is of acceptable purity for drinking.
Associated Press, I have you loud and clear. How us?
Very good. Greetings, Endeavour Station. This is Marcia Dunn speaking to you from the Kennedy Space Center. Boy, you two sure had some excitement during yesterday's spacewalk. Heidi, can you describe what it was like for you when your grease gun exploded and your tool bag got away?
Well, it was definitely not the high point of the EVA. It was somewhat disheartening to open up the bag and to realize that there was grease everywhere. Well, not everywhere, but everywhere. It's interesting in space when things like a grease gun it exploded. It was, I don't know if exploded is the right word to use, but it kind of seeped out, and it was just a continuous ooze. And unlike something in the ground where you'd find a big blob of grease or a big pile of grease, it doesn't happen that way in space. In space, it just comes out in the small stream, and then it breaks off, half an inch piece, and then it floats off, and then there's another piece someplace else. So you get a lot of little pieces of grease everywhere. And it seemed like every time I put my hand in the bag to try to clean one piece, I found more areas that had grease. And in the process of doing that cleaning is when the bag came loose and floated away. And that was definitely very disheartening to see that float away.
Well, how did the tool bag come untethered, do you think?
Well, we're thinking about trying to double check of what we did, and we're not sure if in the packing and repacking it got untethered and then it was packed back in and wasn't tethered. That's what we're thinking is the likely reason what happened.
Well, your spacewalk manager down here praised your character and discipline for continuing on with the spacewalk and accomplishing the job. Was that hard for you to press on, and how hard is it on you today, 24 hours later?
There's still the psychological thing of knowing that that we had made a mistake and having to live through that. During the spacewalk, during that time it was easy to put it aside because I knew that we still had 5 hours of spacewalk work to do, and the work needed to get done, and you can't dwell on a mistake. It was hardest coming back in and having to face everybody else. That's been the hardest part of it, knowing that that I'd made a mistake. But we still have 3 more spacewalks to go, and we still have a lot of work to do. So it's just something that you have to, learn from your mistakes, and we're definitely not going to do it again. You're not going to see us lose another bag. We're going to double and triple check everything from here on out.
Well, have your crewmates done or said anything to make you feel a little better? And you can chime in too, Steve. Or maybe is it more teasing? Tell me how everybody's trying to make you feel better.
Well, it's not just as much my mistake as anyone else's. I closed up the bag as a final, and I didn't go back and triple check everything. So I'm just as guilty at this as Heidi is. So, no matter how much anybody says something, trying to make you feel better, you kind of know you have to move on. You keep moving on, trying to figure out how to best accomplish the job next. And there's been a bit of teasing just to make you feel better, but it's sort of like a family in that respect, and we're just getting ready to go on to EVA too.
Well, what's your thoughts on why the grease gun went off? That's what precipitated all this, and what do you think? Bad luck, bad timing? How do you put all this in perspective?
Well, the gun is, we think that the only likely explanation might be is that if there's some air that's mixed in with the grease and it, forced the grease out of the gun. And the fact that we had 4 guns in that bag, and so, nobody's ever taken that much grease out with them. And maybe that's why they've never seen it before. It was, throughout the EVA, we noticed it as we were working with the gun is that we would shut off the gun and you hear us say, safe the gun, and so what we're doing is we're pulling the plunger back, and so it shouldn't continue to flow, but it does. And so the only thing we can think of is if there's somehow, something, possibly air as a motive force out in the vacuum that's forcing it out.
Well, both of you, thank you. Good luck on the rest of your mission and a safe journey home.
Endeavour ISS, this is KMSP TV. Do you hear me?
KMSP TV, I hear you loud and clear.
All right, if we're ready to go, we'll go. Joining us right now, Heidi Marie Definition Piper and Steve Bowen. They're on the shuttle Endeavour, and they say they're ready to go, so let's do it. Heidi, first of all, from your home state and basically your hometown, great to have you with us. We're really proud of the job that you're doing up there. This is your 2nd trip, but we have to get right to this story of the day. The tool belt, the tool bag that got away. We'll let you describe a little bit in your own words what happened up there.
Before the tool bag got away is when I opened the big bag that all the tools were stowed in, is that I noticed that there was a lot of grease, and just a little bit of grease here, a little bit of grease here, but a little bit of grease brushes up against your hands and just makes a big mess, and so that had me, a little, first I was concerned just because I knew the grease was going to get everywhere, and it was everywhere, and so I was trying to clean it up as best as I can and figure out where it was coming from. And in doing so, moving around the bag, when the crew lock bag, the tool bag that you referred to, floated away.
And hearing your voice, it was much like any of us. We might be up on a ladder trying to hang a picture at home, and you drop a screwdriver, and you kind of have the same reaction to all of that. You saw that floating away. Did you finally just realize that you weren't going to be able to get a hold of it again and that it was lost?
Yes, I did. There's that split second thinking that, maybe I can go jump for it and grab it. And I realized that, that would probably just make everything worse, and we would have 2 floating objects, one of which would be me. And so the best thing to do is just let it go. And, yes, it was very disheartening watching it float away.
We're not talking about a couple of tools that you pick up at your local hardware store. Do you have any idea what that tool bag costs and what was in it?
I can tell you what was in it, but I'm not sure how much it costs. I probably don't want to know at this point. But actually, some of them was very similar to what you might pick up at a hardware store, because we had 2 grease guns. Granted, some of they had modified tips on them, but the basic design is the same thing you'd buy for a caulking gun to do your bathroom repair.
Now, you're standing with Steve Bowen there. We have to ask Steve, because you had to come back into the shuttle and explain to everybody that you lost the tool bag. So what kind of reaction did you guys have there?
Well, everybody was very sympathetic and very supportive as to the loss of the tool bag, but mostly they were very happy that we managed to get the job done despite the loss of the tool bag. And sort of one of those things where no matter what they say, though, you kind of have in the back of your mind that you made a mistake and you're not going to be able to get it back, and you want to do the best you can. So really, we've moved on, and we're going to try and send Shane and Heidi out tomorrow and do a very successful EVA too.
Yeah, you have a couple more spacewalks left here, so can you get by without these tools? Do you have backups on board, or did you have to improvise?
Well, we know we have enough backups on board to get through EVA 2, potentially EVA 3. We're working with the ground. They're looking hard to figure out how we can accomplish the tasks that we have left, and I think we can do it. What do you think, Hardy?
Yeah, we're looking at ways that we're just going to have to rearrange what we do, and it means we're not going to be as efficient as we could be as if we had 2 sets of the guns. That's the big thing that we don't have replacements of, is the grease guns. And so we think that there's a way. I'm talking to the ground. We talked to the ground last night, had a good discussion with them of ways that we can continue and get the job done despite the lack of tools.
Hey, Heidi, you grew up in St. Paul and here in Minnesota. You want to give a shout-out to anybody back here? Here's your chance.
Well, I'd like to say hello to everybody back in St. Paul, especially my family. My mother still lives back there, and 2 of my brothers are still in Minnesota. And I'd like to say hello to them. And, to all my friends, my old high school, Durham Hall High School, which is now Cretin-Durham Hall. Say hello to all of them.
All right, and our meteorologist Ian Leonard says next time you go out for that spacewalk and the tool bag, make sure you bring some duct tape.
Okay, we'll try that, except duct tape doesn't stick very well in a vacuum.
All right. Hey, good luck the rest of the trip. We're really proud of the job that all of you are doing up there. We appreciate you joining us today. Good luck.
Thank you. It's been great talking to you.
Hey, Ed, this is Steve and Heidi up here on the International Space Station.
You answered one of my questions. I was curious what you'd like to be called, because I would gladly do that. Captain, is it Stephen? Is it Heidi? Now that you answered that, it's great. Let me ask you at the top, what is it like to wake up in space?
I'll answer this because Heidi's been here before. So the first time you wake up in space is a bit confusing, because I woke up looking down at the floor, which is not the normal way of looking at things, I gather, and just kind of floating in my sleeping bag, and it was very disorienting at first. And you look around and you try and figure out which way is up. Well, it really isn't an up, but which way you consider the ceiling. So it's a little different.
Heidi, would you agree with that, since you're a veteran of space?
Oh, most definitely. It's, now that, this is our 6th day up in space, and we all have our space legs, and so I'm floating between module and module, and I come out, and quite often I have to, take a minute or two to figure out which way is forward and aft, and what's up and what's down. And when we refer to up and down, it's usually what people on the ground would think is up and down, but for us it really doesn't matter.
It is a good point by you. Steve, I have to ask you, since you are from Cohasset, does that make you a Cohastronaut?
Apparently, I've heard that term only recently, so that I guess that applies to me.
I'm curious, I know you live in Houston now, but but how much do you think of Cohasset? And every time you fly over, do you look down and wave to Cohasset?
I think of Cohasset a lot. You know, it's a beautiful small town, and I've spent almost half my entire life in that town. So, and I still have a lot of friends there, family, and I'm always thinking of Cohasset. Haven't had a chance to look down yet and see it, but I've seen a lot of other parts of the world as we've flown by.
You know, Steve, I'm curious, when you're out in space, and the spacewalks are what, 6.5, 7 hours long, what does the body feel like? Do you feel like you're working at warp speed? Do you feel like you're working in slow motion? What does the body feel like?
Actually felt very good. We spend a lot of time training in the NBL, which is a large swimming pool, and you have to work against not just the force differential pressure across the suit, but also the force of water. So my first time out the door yesterday, I wasn't sure what to expect. Still have to work against the suit, but the water's gone, and it was fantastic. Really felt really good, very comfortable. The suit's an incredible machine. I like to sort of consider it a mini submarine, but this one actually happened to be in space, and that was pretty amazing.
That first time you stepped out and looked around, what was your reaction, Steve?
My first reaction was it's hard to control the position of my body initially. You know, like I said, there was no water to push against, so you actually have to work against your own body to reposition yourself. So it took me a few minutes to get that better situated, and it was dark when we first went out, so I didn't have the chance to look down right away. But as soon as I saw the Earth come up, that was just awe-inspiring.
All right, let me ask both of you before I say goodbye. I know you're going to be up in space during Thanksgiving, and down here in America, we're going to be enjoying turkey. Up in space, you guys are going to be enjoying what, Heidi?
Actually, we're going to have turkey, too. The minute they found out that our mission was going to last over Thanksgiving, they went ahead and swapped out one of our meals for a Thanksgiving dinner. So we're going to have turkey and cornbread dressing and green beans and candied yams and cranberry apple dessert. So pretty much the same thing people on Earth are going to be eating.
Boy, that sounds good. And Stephen, are you going to be pulling for Cohasset on Thanksgiving Day? I assume you are, huh?
You bet I am.
I would like to thank both of you for taking your time out of your day to talk to us today. It is, I have to tell you, for me, 225 miles below you, it's a thrill to talk with both of you. So have a safe mission, Godspeed, and we will welcome you back home when you get here. Great to see you.
It was great to talk to you.
Thank you, Associated Press, KMSP-TV, and WCVB-TV. Station, we are now resuming operational space-to-ground communications.
This is Mission Control Houston, a close-up view at Mission Specialist Don Pettit as he continues with his on-orbit science project, hooking up the water recovery system to the appropriate jumpers as part of the environmental and consumable systems on board, getting ready to activate the regenerative life support systems on board the International Space Station. Again, it's going to be about 90 days before this water recycling system can be fully utilized by the crew, as some very stringent tests regarding the quality of the water that's being developed, as urine and condensation from the atmosphere and hygiene water from washing and other activities aboard the station is recycled for use as drinking water. That water also will be available for other uses, such as generation of oxygen. The U.S. oxygen generation system and the Electron system on the Russian side both take water and separate it into its components, oxygen and hydrogen. The hydrogen is vented overboard, and the oxygen is then recycled for breathing air, and so water on board is a very precious commodity. As Pettit works on this activity with Commander Mike Fink, Other activities scheduled are additional transfers of equipment and supplies from the Leonardo Multi-Purpose Logistics Module, 7 tons, 14,000 pounds worth of equipment and supplies being delivered. All 7 of the hard racks that were inside the Leonardo module have been transferred over to the station and installed in their current locations. Also 3 more soft compartments full of tools and equipment were delivered, and one of the hard racks that's going back over to the Leonardo module for return to Earth also transferred back over to Leonardo as the prepacking for items to come back down to Earth begins.
This is a view from inside the station's Destiny laboratory, where Commander Mike Fink and the station's new flight engineer Sandy Magnus are working on the new water recovery system racks that were delivered to the station by Endeavour. Now that those racks have been transferred from the multi-purpose logistics module that they came up in to the Destiny laboratory where they'll be living, Fink and Magnus are installing all the power, data, and fluid jumpers for the system. Seeing a view inside the Quest airlock now with Mission Specialist Heidi Definition Piper, and in the background Mission Specialist Jane Kimbrough wearing their oxygen mask and now getting ready to pull down the hatch of the Quest airlock and start the depressurization of the airlock. And there's the hatch of Quest airlock closing. Piper and Kimbrough will be spinning the 9 inside at a pressure of 10.2 pounds per square inch as they get ready for the second spacewalk of the mission.
Main engine start, 6 engines up and running. And liftoff. Liftoff of the Proton rocket of the Zarya Control Module. The International Space Station is underway.
Hi, I'm Chris Ferguson, the commander of the Space Shuttle Endeavour.
And I'm Mike Fink, commander of the International Space Station. And today is a special day aboard the space station. We're celebrating the 10th anniversary of the first launch of the first module of the International Space Station. 10 years ago, from the steppes of Kazakhstan, was launched the first module, Zarya, on a Proton rocket. It was met a few weeks later in orbit by Endeavour, which carried the Unity module, and since then, our space station has gotten larger and larger. We've traveled 51,000 times around the planet, which is more than many, many trips to the moon and back. And along the way, we've learned how to live in space for a long time, and we've learned how to act and work together as international partners. And I know myself and my crew are really proud to be here on this special date.
Speaking as a space shuttle pilot and commander, I've only had the opportunity to visit the space station and not stay for a long duration. But it's extremely interesting as you conduct any one of a number of orbital burns to approach the space station and see it even from 40 miles away. You can tell the beauty and the grandeur and the enormity of this vehicle. As you get closer, it only gets larger. Post-docking, when we are able to come inside and explore the expanse of the vehicle, it's overwhelming, the size and the enormity of this ship in space. This crew, this fine crew, and its cargo will enable the space station to plus up to a crew of 6 people living full-time, international partners working hand in hand for years on end. After 10 years, we wish the International Space Station a happy birthday, and we hope to see many, many more. Thank you.